Britain's nightmare before Christmas. A divided country faced an election that will tear it still further apart. British voters keep being called into the polls, and each time the options before them are worse. Labour and the Conservatives, once parties of the central left and the right, have steadily grown further apart in the three elections of the past 4 years. Next week, voters face their starker choice yet between Boris Johnson, whose Tories promise a hard Brexit, and Jeremy Corbyn, whose Labour Party plans to rewrite the rules of the economy, along radical socialist lines. Ms. Johnson ran the most unpopular new government on record. Ms. Corbyn is the most unpopular leader of the opposition. Friday the 13th. Unlucky Brits were waved to find one of those horrors in charge. At the last election, 2 years and a political era ago, regret the drift to the extremes. Today's manifestos go a lot further. In 2017, Labour was on the left of the European mainstreams. Today it was sized 10% of large firms' equity, paid in funds paid out mostly to the extra rather than to the workers who were meant to be beneficiaries. They were faced in a 4-day week, supposedly with no loss of pay. Lists of industries will be nationalized seem only to grow. Drug pensions could be forcibly licensed. The bill for rapid licensing expanding would fall on the rich and the company, whose tax burden will go from the lowest in the G7 to the highest. These attempts to deal with 21st century problems use policies that failed in the 20s. Nor has Ms. Corbyn done everything to deepen concerns about his broader worldview. A critic of Western foreign policy and sympathy with dictators in Iran and Venezuela were opposite. He blamed NATO for Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2014. Last year, he shared samples of a nerve engine used to poison a Russian former spy in Salisbury should be sentenced to Moscow. So, Vladimir Putin could say it was his. Under such a prime minister, Britain could not rely on receiving American intelligence. Nor has Ms. Corbyn dealt with anti-Semitism that had taken root in Labour on his watch. Some reminders might swallow this at the price of a second Brexit referendum, which Ms. Corbyn has at last promised. We have long argued for such a vote. Yes, Ms. Corbyn's ruinous parents at home and the bankruptcy view abroad means this newspaper cannot support Labour. The Conservatives too has grown scarier since 2017. Ms. Johnson has ditched the Brexit deal negotiated by Theresa May and stuck a worse than one, in effect looping off Northern Ireland so that Britain can leave the European Union's customs union. The public are so sick of the whole facade that his promise to get Brexit done wins voters. But he will do no such thing. After Britain has left the EU early next year, the hard work of negotiating a trade agreement will begin. Ms. Johnson said he will do this by the end of 2020 or live without one. No deal is thus still on the table and a real prospect. Since getting a deal is less a year looks ahead, the best estimates suggest that living without deal would make average income 8% lower than they were otherwise they have after 10 years. Brexit is not the only problem with Ms. Johnson's New Look theories. He has purged moderates and accelerated the shift from an economically and socially liberal party into an economically integralism and culturally conservative one, angling for working class, leaving voter seats in the north. He has proposed extra seat aid by British government procedures and a sticking tax and spending plan that does not add up. Also, he had absorbed the fatal lesson of the Brexit campaign, and there is no penalty for lying or breaking the rules. He promised not to suspend the parliament, then did. He promised not to extend the Brexit talks, they did. The charities creates trust in democracy. Last minute Corbyn he had normalized prejudice by displaying his own and failing to investigate in the party. For all these reasons, this movement cannot support the Conservatives, but leave a lower bar for the Liberal Democrats, and they clear it. They too has become more extreme since we backed them in 2017. Under the new leader, John Swinson, he has gone beyond the idea of a second referendum for a responsible promise to resolve Brexit unitarily. He has deservedly backfired, and their economic approach, a moderate increase in spending paid by broad-based tax increases, is the most sensitive of the main parties, and is only one to be honest about the cost of an aging society. On climate change and social policy, they strike the best balance between ambition and realism. At last time, they're the only choice for anyone who rejects both the hard Brexit of the Conservatives and the hard left plans of Labour. Yet they will not win, so why back them? The practical reason is to restrain whoever ends up in Downing Street. Voters worry that backing the Labour Dems playing into mid-carbon hands, but our modelling suggests that voters and seats will come fairly evenly for both parties. Ms Corbyn is preparing to govern with the Scottish National Party, which will back most of its programme in return for another independence referendum. Having more Liberal Dems will check his plan. Likewise, they would derail in Ms Johnson. Some Tories cling to the hope that if he wins a big majority, he would drop the populist act and rediscover his liberal instincts. They are deluded. If he wins the Brexit back seats he's targeting with his promises of more state aid, do they expect him to switch back to the fantasy of building Singapore on Thames? The opposition is true. The bigger the Tory majority, the more dramatic the party transformation. The principal reason is that Liberal Democrats are closest to liberalism on which this newspaper was founded. A strong Liberal Democrat should also would sign to vote whoever open markets and the liberal society then the central is life. The past few years has shown why Parliament needs good people such as Sam Gammon, who left the Tory because of their extremes, and the Chairman Owen, who left Labour because the course of Brexit has been repeatedly changed for better by independent-minded MPs making the running. If Britain will withdraw from the EU in January, Lib Dem MPs will be among the best advocates of a deep trade deal and the strongest opponents of no deal. There's no good outcome to the nightmare of election, but for the central, the whole is to best hope for Britain.